Welcome. I'm Jackie, and this is Jackson Rose, a podcast about the makers who make things. I'm so glad you're here today. Today I'm going to talk about ribboning and the ribbon wrap. First, I want to say a thank you to my patrons. They have been so involved in this process from back in February when I first showed the ribbon wrap, and all this spring they have been ribboning with me, and I have so appreciated their diving in and their stories and imagination. So I just want to thank you so much if you are a patron. I also want to thank Purl SoHo. Much of the linen quill has been given to me by Purl SoHo. I also have a huge stash, but linen quill is one of my core yarns that I really love, and I do have an affiliate link to it. I'll link that in the show notes below if you're inspired, but I also want you to know that more than anything, this is about not having a particular yarn or particular colors, but using whatever materials that you have available to have an experience for yourself. And I guess I'll just segue right into when I began this podcast. It was like a year and a half ago. I was reading, and I am still reading, The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. And I'm just going to share a chapter today, and I want to share ribboning really as an experience. And it's taken me a while to really, and I think I'm still in the process actually of recognizing how different this experience has been for me than any other knit I've ever made, because it has been so much about my relationship with myself and the world around me as I make it. I have had very little time to live into the wearing of these, but so much time because of the weather. You know, it's not the season for these big wraps, but I have had so much time in this really fundamental shift of having it be a vehicle for to attune me to my world, to my inner world and the world outside me that's bigger than me. So let me just share a reading from The Creative Act. It's the chapter, Expect a Surprise. I won't read the whole chapter to you. Expect a surprise. If we're paying attention, we may notice that some of our most interesting artistic choices come about by accident, springing from moments of communion with the work, when the self disappears. Sometimes they feel like mistakes. In time, we grow accustomed to experiencing moments that are difficult to explain. Moments where you give the art exactly what it needs without intending to. Where a solution seems as if it appeared without your intervention at all. In time, we learn to count on the hand of the unknown. With your intention set and the destination unknown, you are free to surrender your conscious mind, dive into the raging stream of creative energy, and watch the unexpected appear again and again. As each small surprise leads to another, you'll soon find the biggest surprise. You learn to trust yourself. You learn to trust yourself in the universe, with the universe, as a unique channel to higher wisdom. This intelligence is beyond our understanding. Through grace, it's accessible to all. So that's a little excerpt from that. And this learning to trust yourself is what this is about, and learning to be with yourself in the moment. Ribbon, this would be my third video about ribbon wraps. I made one about the initial one, I made one about Richard's, and this is my final one. And I can go about, and I will eventually tell you the story of making this ribbon here. But I wanted, before I did that, I wanted to say a little bit more about the pattern. The pattern is written, it's called Ribbon, A Consideration of Color. And it's meant to give you my creative process and how I choose color and how I have color be this sort of language between me and my world, between the past and the present, between the inner and the outer. That's what the pattern is about. That's what I write into. In terms of like how to make German short rows and those sorts of things, that's in Soho Square. That's in, you could even find information on that in Purl SoHo's half and half triangle wrap. Clearly these are a lineage, these patterns are a lineage. I made half and halves way back when I was doing Caddy Jack's knits. I made them through the pandemic. And I've made Soho Square was my first paid for pattern ever. And it was really deliberate and intentional. The proportions, the numbers, they were based on the Fibonacci sequence. This does not drift that far afield from those original numbers. However, it's more than a chart. It's so much more than a chart. And it's been funny because I've been, again, even with the images, I think traditionally one of the things that my knitting experience has been is I do become enchanted with my work. I do photograph the process. I do think about what I'm going to wear with it. And I do think I sometimes can draw people into my own enchantment. And maybe people might feel that energy that I feel and then maybe think, oh, I want that for myself. And what I'm trying to do here is more than that. I'm not trying to make it about me. And so I didn't fill the pattern with pictures of me in my wraps. Instead, I left that a little open because I'm really trying to let it be a canvas for you to fill with your own experiences, memories, associations, and loves. And so each of these objects, almost now that they're finished, they're so different than the making of them. The making of them was an enchantment. And all I can say about ribbons, and I've said it before, but perhaps you're new here, is the idea of the ribbon came from this ribbon that I was given when I moved here. And this ribbon, my friend Emily was going through, you know, a very scary health crisis, and she had just gotten back from London, and this was hand dyed. She found it at Loop in London, and she thought it was so beautiful. And I told her, you can see, I told her about falling in love and moving away, and this ribbon was sort of a symbol of something we both have in common, which is this love of beauty and a love of sensuality and a love of the insouciant, the unexpected, what's delightful. And ribbons have that sense of ornament and luxurious, gorgeous extravagance just by tying a ribbon around your neck or in your hair. And each ribbon is so different and unique, and you can collect little ribbons as people did in the past. But the other piece about a ribbon is it's a small, portable memento, a symbol of something. So this could be a symbol of my new love. It could be a symbol of my friendship. It could be a symbol of our hearts and our desire for help. Certainly we've all heard of the yellow ribbons in World War II, or the ribbons that people are wearing on their lapels now, thinking of hostages. There's lots of ways ribbons have been used throughout time. Also, I was at the Bounty doing an artist residency, and there were all these regimental ribbons and stripes. So they're a way of proclaiming I belong to this group. And so I wanted to create ribbons, and not just bands of color, but ribbons symbols within the wrap that I wore. And I want these ribbons to represent me or my loves or things I care about. And so that was the premise, the initial premise. And forgive me if this is a repeat for many of you. And then the other key thing about ribbon, like just the idea of ribbon, is this time that we're living in, which is so polarized and so full, so many of us feel so much anxiety and concern. And so a ribbon wrap is this giant yin-yang symbol. It's this giant both and. It's this giant representation that while we can see things differently, there are things that we have in common as human beings. And I can't change that my fundamental nature, what I immerse myself, are the poets and the mystics. I love history, but I tend to I get swept up in Whitman. I get swept up in, right now I'm reading tales of the prophets and these stories of lamentation and imagination. I'm living along the Mississippi River where Mark Twain wrote, and his stories of bemusement. That's just how I see the world. And one of the things about that is it's just a vantage. It's one viewpoint about many. It's not a vantage that needs to be argued away or anything like that. But everyone's entitled to their vantage. And I don't live in a place where I think that there's just one. So ribbon, literally, I didn't want to design one ribbon. I wanted to design two ribbons. I wanted to show that there are, just as they discover in physics, there are multiple universes. And this is not meant to, this design is not meant to force you to take up a position, but it is meant to attend you while you encounter paradox, while you encounter polarization, while you reach to understand another point of view. And I have to say, I find one of the most beautiful things that I ever get to witness, and I remember this from teaching all the time, when my students would have a conflict, I had the great privilege to be able to take the time to set them down and have them have a conversation. And the rules were always, you cannot crosstalk. One person, and I'm not looking to see who's to blame. I want to hear your story. You go ahead, you tell your story. And then the next student, their job was to repeat what that student had said. Just repeat it. You don't get to say what you're thinking until you repeat their story. And then that student would repeat their story, and then they could share what they wanted to share. And the next and the next. And it went around. First, you had to listen without interruption, and you had to repeat. Then you could share. And what I noticed is I never had to do more than that, because at least in children, eventually they would just come into this beautiful like exhale of oh, and they'd forgive each other, or they'd expand the way they saw just a little bit more. And I felt like I was witnessing why we have the intellects we do as humans, our capacity to do that. I know we're capable of harming one another, but we're also capable of great compassion. And so this union where these two ribbons come together, this confluence. I also live on the border between 3 states. It is literally, I live on a bridge, and the Mississippi curves around it, and the Des Moines River flows, and that's the border. That's the border from the north and the south, the east and the west. So this confluence where things come together, and in that, up on this ridge, there's a dam, there's locks, and the river I can hear roaring out my window. And all of these bald eagles live around here to catch the fish that get caught up in this. And it feels very vital and feels like a place far bigger than myself, far older than myself. And I wanted to put that, I mean, I call these ribbons, but I very, very often think of them as rivers, and I think of this fluidity, and I feel like moving from where I lived all my life next to this giant river, and I feel its flow. I feel this energy moving through this very, there's much to be said about, which I'm not going to say here, about what's happened to these small towns in this part of the country, the things I'd never seen before, and the problems here that I'd never seen before. But at the same time, the constant vitality and life force flowing by me, well, that's taken up in these. So that's the structure of the wrap. It's all there for you. And it all begins really with just feeling into a main color. I've done a lot of podcasting about having my colors done and having seasons and having one color be right or wrong. But I never wanted to be told any color was unavailable to me, especially colors that I've loved my whole life. And so I wanted to create a space and a way to really highlight a color that I love, that matters, that's important to me, that maybe isn't flattering on me. So this design has room for all of that. And I feel like it's kind of practical in that way. And it's also holds this sense for me of hope. It holds this sense for me of patient witnessing. It holds this sense for me of finally of connecting with other people, because I have so many positive experiences of making half and half wraps and cals and making Soho squares and seeing people make something all over the world that gives them joy and pleasure that we have all made together. Well, I have that feeling of connection with other people too. And so I'm going to show you, and I can't wait to show you this last one and tell you its story, just so that you have an example, not because I want you to make this one exactly, but so you can have an example of the storytelling that happens while we make it. Mark Twain, Whitman, they're running through my head. There's poems running through my head. There's songs running through my head. That's all part of the knitting. That's all part of it for me. And there's these discoveries that are all part of it for me. And I will tell you many of the things, but I may forget some of the things, and that's okay. But where this one started was just the first color, still water. I just felt so much turmoil, and I just wanted that piece of knitting and garter and knitting this still water, which is it's a blue, black, moody, tweedy color. And linen quill, of course, it doesn't have to be linen quill, and I've said this before, and I really emphasized it in the pattern. It's very much about, for me, abundance. Not abundance for its own sake, but so that you have flexibility in your choices. Because just like a river, the way I think of the colors, it meanders and it changes. So I started off with still water, and I thought for sure the second half would be peony pink, because I love peony pink so much. But here was still water. And I put in the pattern a full page of images, of some of the images that are just either were in my head at the beginning or as the pattern went along. But there was this particular dress, and it's funny because it was one view of the dress. And this is the ribboning now, where you start to, you have the ease of this, And this part, when I'm doing this first part, I am starting to put my colors out and pile up a bunch of possible colors and gather images. There's lots of knitting here. So this would be the imagining section. And the funny thing is I also, just to clarify, named these two sides. So I named this side of the ribbon wrap the queen ribbon, and I named this other side the king ribbon, you know, just so that you could differentiate them. And usually I start with the queen ribbon, and I started this one knowing that I wanted this gold mustard seed. You know, this is one of my absolute all-time favorite colors. I love this color from childhood. I love this color because I'm a Leo and it's the sun. And, you know, it just makes me happy. Whenever we talk about, as an elementary school teacher, what's your favorite color? This is what I always say, yellow. So anyways, I knew I wanted yellow. And I had this other idea in mind, and maybe I can pop a picture in it, but this is part of ribboning. I wanted the queen bands, which are these thick bands, to be yellow. And when I did that, what I came up with was something that looked like an egg yolk, and I wasn't satisfied. And I was literally leading a Patreon, showing, and I was saying, trust yourself, you can do this. You can just have the colors come to you as you go. And of course, I hit a roadblock. And my partner Richard loved what I was doing, and I just didn't. And it was so hard for me because I had to rip it back. And even though he liked it, I was like, I can't knit this whole thing and not be in love with it, not be ribboning. Ribboning means I'm listening, and if I have this little voice saying this isn't right, then I have to pay attention to it. And it took me some time. It took me a couple of days with just yarn everywhere, and there's so many ways of, you know, having yarn, taking photos, doing it on the computer, back and forth, whatever, until I realized, oh, playing around, because the other thing about a ribbon wrap are there's two main colors for the giant part of it. You know, you can see the two main colors over there. But the ribbon itself, very importantly, has two main colors. In this one, it's peony pink and pale oats. And they have the same main color within the ribbon because I literally want to focus on, no matter how different we think we are, we have things in common. And that feels very, very important to me. And so they need, and it's not convenient because I will say so much of the ribbons, other than those main colors, the main color of the wrap and the main color of the ribbon, though all the rest of it can be done with these little mini skeins, just little bits of yarn. But there is not enough, I will just say at the outset, if you have your ribbon's main color, you need more than this. So you're gonna need to buy a full skein, or you use your stash, because I know there's lots of people who have lots of stash. So at any rate, I came upon the solution, which was to make the yellow and white just be the king side, the little bands. And in so doing, I realized I didn't want my second half to be peony pink. I just wanted it to be gray. I wanted pink in the ribbons. I wanted this sort of a neutral band with real ribbony color, like a sash. And so this was going to be my main color, and I put peony pink in here and weathered blue. And as I went along, as I was knitting this, and this blue from the dress, and it was feeling so right to me. And I was also in a class with Amy Pelko, a class that she's doing called Psyche's Mirror, which I just love. And we were drawing tarot, and we were talking about things. And the cards I was drawing, they were starting to invite certain colors for the center ribbon. And in that time, I discovered an artist as well that is an artist that was new to me. Not new to you, I'm sure, but Hilma Afklint. In particular, there was this picture of a swan, which Amy was quite familiar with. I'm gonna leave the, oh, there it is. Which to me felt so much. This book, it's not my favorite in terms of how they've reproduced the colors. I have another one I prefer, but I had to return it to the library. These blues are much brighter. But this whole idea, you can see it's like, it reminds me of a ribbon wrap. The main colors and the ribbons are swans. And there's little bits of different colors in them. And of course, she also had this series that was so beautiful on childhood and youth and adulthood and old age. And it introduced another color, you know, that so there. I saw this while I was working, and it was such an affirmation, and her art was such an affirmation. And I ended up watching a video about her. I haven't had a chance to read the book, and I won't even pretend to be an expert, but she has charted out colors and what they mean. So the main colors of my ribbon have meaning that I was like, oh, I thought that was fascinating. And so this ribbon was a discovery and a joy, and it wasn't what I set out for, but it was exactly, it arrived, you know. There was no plan for this. I didn't plan to start on this side. I didn't plan this palette. And I just need to show you again, one of my favorite books is this illustrated version of The Lady of Shalott by Tennyson. And of course, as an elementary school teacher, I love the way there are opportunities for illustrators to interpret a poem. So in this case, the Lady of Shalott climbs onto her river, gets into her vessel, and it seems in the poem like she dies, but of course this artist interprets it as it's just a transformation. And she's transformed into a butterfly. And of course the palette is all the yellows and blues and blacks that I love so much. I love that poem and I want to read it to you, but I'm going to try to keep this shorter and not read all the poems that are in this. There's so many poems in here. So we go on to the second side, and what I did know is these little borders here I also discovered in the making. It was again Amy Pelka. She sent me these images of Pamela Anderson. Now I don't watch hardly any TV at all, so I'm very unaware often of what's, you know, I haven't seen any TV series. I really haven't watched TV since middle school. So I'm out of many loops. But she sent me pictures of Pamela Anderson, and some of you might be familiar with what was so beautiful about what Pamela Anderson recently did is she's roughly my age, and she decided that her narrative, she was going to claim it back. She has 2 sons. They did a documentary, and she decided to claim her life and tell her own story in her own way and return to acting, return from a place that she neither renounced her youthful what happened to her. She accepted it, but she also said, and this is who I am now. So she let it be what it was and said, and I get to have this life now. And I thought it was such a gentle approach. I really appreciated it. And I watched her movie, The Last Showgirls, and she wore this feather in her hair. And I knew I needed bright flamingo. And what I'll say about some of the surprises before I even get in, I suppose I got ahead of myself, is I call this section the keep. I've made the first ribbon, and this is this whole time where you're just sitting with yourself and enjoying what you did on the first half, but I really try to have it be allowing myself to be present and sit with everything that the first ribbon brought up, the delight, the surprise, whatever, and not be racing to just finish it, because the making of these is so wonderful. And in life, there are necessary calm times, and even in those, like, I couldn't believe this. I was so surprised to see, oh, this book that's been with me this whole time, well, it's right here in this shawl. This is a way of being right here, hit into my wrap unintentionally. Well, we get to the second half of the ribbon, and just, it gives me back something so wonderful, because it gives me back this blue. Again, not a plan. I didn't know what I was going to do. And in working with Amy in her class, I come to just learn about my sun sign, Leo. I always knew, but my ascendant, and you don't have to be into this at all, but I'm just telling you that my ascendant is Virgo, and the Virgin, and I've always loved this blue. I always call it Titian blue, and I've always seen these Marys with their blue robes, and I've always been moved by them. In art, I've loved them my whole life, and of course it's like a river, of course it's like the water that I live by, and the Virgin, and Mary, and my friend, this friend, Emily. When I saw her again and I showed her the ribbons that I've been making, of course she showed me Dolly Parton, Dolly as a saint, and with her heart and her robes. And so I have this Dolly blue in here too. It was a wonderful gift. It was not a plan, it was a gift as I knit. And same with this little tiny ribbon in the middle. Of course, this color, this tiny color, I'll pop some footage in at the end of this video. The coach house that I live by is this crumbling, beautiful brick that's fading. And then this is golden wheat, which I just love golden. I love wheat so much. So to have my central band be this brick and wheat, I felt was perfect. And again, these serendipities, I was so surprised or not surprised or whatever, that when I finished this blossom, you can see pink and white are in bloom. So, I finished this right when this comes into blooming. Just like when I finished this, the magnolias were blooming. When I made the one above Richard's, the tulip tree, which I've never seen before, was in bloom. And these are these magical serendipities. So then you make this second ribbon, and then this last part is just this gratitude and receiving, this surrender, this sense of like, this thing came to pass through my hands. And so one of the things that I want to say about it, and which I talked about my Patreon, is I don't take lots of pictures and just show the wrap as a square and just show it, because I almost feel for me, and maybe it's too strong a word, you could say special, you could say sacred, that this is intimate, this is private, where this comes together. I like to have it curl and wrap around me. I like to know that there's an inner and an outer, and a one side and another, and I don't need it to be examined and exposed. But each of these ribbons does come together in a very intentional way, in a very orderly way. But then the final piece, which I don't have much experience with, and I can show video of me putting this on when I'm standing, is the wearing it. But I know in all the other wraps, and you know this about your own experiences, when you wear something that's so very you, you feel buoyed by it. You go into the world and you have this energy of grounded and delighted. And that going forth, grounded and delighted, your encounters change. You meet people and you're more inclined to smile at them. You're more inclined to strike up a conversation with them. I want to show my delight, but I want to invite you into your delight and your opportunity to make one of these. This one was Richard's, and if you saw the video, I go into detail about this too. This was designed like a mallard duck. So and this was given to me. This also was a dahlia that, you know, arrived the day I knitted in. This was the surprise side that I didn't plan. It came out of this side. And this, excuse me, all Richard wears is brown corduroys. I swear I'm gonna have to get a pair of brown corduroys. But anyways, this is his. You can see. And then the very first one. This is the one where my friend Emily gave me that ribbon. And the idea that this could mean something like ribbons mean, ornamental and solidarity with those we love, or those we're thinking about, or those who are in harm's way, or those who've sacrificed for us, or our lineage, or our ancestors, or those who make us feel powerful and strong. Any symbol you want to knit into here, you know, that's your choice, which is so wonderful. This is a very feminine side. And here's same colors, much in common, but so different looking. Purl SoHo has offered to give away a set of mini skeins to launch the pattern. Do it on Instagram, and then you can follow me on Instagram and follow Purl SoHo on Instagram. I'm doing that because I want to create community. And so in the comment, I would love for you, the color that matters to you. And you might look at, you could, if you want Purl SoHo yarn, I think it's only fair in this case to look at their palette and name one of the colors from their palette. This is mustard seed, and so you'll comment on Instagram, you'll say mustard seed and what you associate it. For me, I would say mustard seed and my favorite t-shirt when I was a girl, or mustard seed and the color of the sun, or mustard seed and the promise that the smallest of acts can have vast consequences. It can mean whatever it wants to you. But that's very nice of Purl SoHo to do that. I love this idea of these wrapping in a way that everything isn't just revealed, everything isn't just in a glare. There's this what is here? What else is there? So the final surprise of this whole thing was, of course, I've planned the 6 colors. They still evolve, but are the 2 main colors, then the 2 main colors within the ribbon, and then the 2 colors of the ribbons themselves. The queen ribbon, in this case, it's magnolia blossom, and in this one, it's mint green. Those 6 colors are really intentional. They really need to work together. If you're not as confident with color, then look at art, look at fashion, look at what colors are used with what other colors, and let this whole thing be a practice for you. Let it be a consideration of color. Let it be not just a consideration of what the experts say, but how they feel with you, what memories they have for you. Color can mean, but it means different things to different people. And this is your chance to have your own vocabulary of color, your own consideration of what colors mean to you. And ultimately, the thing I want is these to be something you wear around you that gives you joy and confidence and a sense of coming from a place of compassion for yourself, because you've sat with yourself, you've struggled, you've enjoyed, and then for other people. To know that, to always know. I mean, this rat shows you that there's always more than what you see. There's a whole other side. There's what you see and what you don't see. And to think that you have the full picture is always less than what is available. It's always less. What we know is always less than what there is to know. And that's what ribboning means to me. And the final piece I'll say about that is I have been a dog person my entire life. And I'm allergic to cats. I don't know how to hold cats. I don't pet cats. I have nothing to do with cats. And right when I finished this, two little kittens showed up on my front porch. And I got a neighbor to come and get the kittens. But one wouldn't be caught. The other one was caught, taken away, given to a woman named Wilma. This one would not let herself be caught.
You're so cute.
So I decided, well, while we get her tame enough, I'll feed her a little, and then she can be caught. And
I'm
not to watch
petting
this
you.
little
I
kitten
can't pet you.
work on
You
me
little cute
and
thing.
follow me around the
Yes.
garden and
Hi.
hunt me in the garden and
Hi.
come nearer and nearer and want
Yeah.
my attention. Well,
What did we grow?
she
Did
sorta
we
won me
build this
over
whole
and honey,
garden
I
just for
named her
you?
Ribbon. And
Just
so
for
I'm
you,
currently
you little silly
taking
thing?
care of a little kitten named Ribbon.
Hi. Hi. Yeah. Come say hello. There you are, you little silly thing. You little silly thing. Ew. So naughty. So naughty. Oh boy. Look at the fierce little kitty cat. Fierce little kitty cat. Oh, yes. Oh boy. Oh boy. You're like camouflage with the garden.
Pop some video in of her too.
The yin and the yin and the yang. I have a little kitty down here who wants some love. Do you want to come up here? Here we go. There we go. This, I drew a card for Amy's class, a black swan, and then I discovered that artist, and in discovering that artist, it was such an affirmation of the palette that I was using. It was because I had turned away from the palette. As odd as this may sound, I had turned away. Oh goodness, oh my goodness, somebody just got in my yarn bag. It is about the cutest thing you would ever see. I'm going to have to show you. Okay, do you see that she's in my yarn bag? I'm afraid you might fall out. And she's chewing it. This is what cats do? Oh dear. She just sits there. That seems like okay. Oh my goodness. Never in my life. This is not what dogs do. But I suppose you're gonna tell me that she could definitely ruin things. Good gracious. Oh yeah, she's feeling very playful. Of course she's feeling playful while I'm trying to do a podcast. I can tell I'm learning little cat language because her ears are look at her ears all pulled back. I cannot believe this. All right, I'm gonna pause.
Thank you for watching this video and spending time with me. It's funny because I'm so enchanted with this way of making. And I had arthritis so bad in my hands from knitting nonstop for like, I don't know, 6 years now. I just always knit. And so as soon as I finished this, I just stopped knitting to rest my hands. And instead of knitting, I've just been watching this little kitten and spending time with her and figuring, just my plans for how to respond to this kitten change day by day. But it's shifted me out of this production mode of, just needing to make and be caught up in one thing after another, and has really slowed me down. I'm glad you're here again. Thank you so much, my patrons, and your beautiful projects and your beautiful stories. And that inspires me to want to do another. I mean, these three just came hot on each other's heels. They just needed to happen. And right now, I'm in this period of rest. But I want to honor that, recognize that it's no different probably than this portion of the wrap. There are periods of your life that need to be like this. I don't need every minute of my life to be this. So I really hope that you have an experience with ribboning. I would love to hear about it. We talk about these things over on Patreon if you want to join us there. But also just know that I wrote this pattern. I wrote it, dear friend. I mean, I wrote it straight from my heart to yours. I so appreciate you, and I see you, and thank you for seeing me. Okay, take care.
Hilarious. I am learning in this podcast episode that shawls are toys to cats. And so Ribbon is sitting under me and thinking it's just so much fun to grab the shawls. This is hilarious. This is so hilarious. Okay. If I get through this podcast, it'll be a miracle because I have a wild kitty underneath my feet while I'm podcasting. So I'm going to read you Tennyson with a wild kitty under my feet. But this is like being an elementary school teacher. I can do this. Part 3. The sun came. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. Well,